All right. So we're a few minutes early on the live stream, folks. I figured I'd get signed up here a little early just to let early stragglers come in, answer any questions. People are still probably watching the football game. Right on, right on. Well, we're here today to talk about Super Strats. And we're in the home of excellent lighting, as y'all can see. Looks like we got a couple people tuning in. If you're tuning in and you're watching the football, let me know the score. And let me know if the audio and visual is working out okay. I can talk louder. And my buddy John is on. What's up, John? Yeah, John is citing the Trump win. Luckily, this channel is about guitar music, and we don't concern ourselves with silly politicking. But John's up. What's up, John? John's the owner of Ibanez Pia that I sold him quite a few years ago, which fits in with our discussion as far as super strats are concerned today. So we'll get into super strats. Glad to see the stream is working. John, buddy, how's my audio, man? Let me know. Looks like we got 3 folks up. Yeah, Pink Panther, man. The Ibanez Pia and Panther Pink is sweet. And thanks, John, for confirming you can hear me okay. That's awesome. Right on. So it's just turning on 9 o'clock. We got a few people on board. Feel free to drop a message in the chat and say hi. We'll get things kicked off, folks, on this live stream. And like I mentioned in the thumbnail and in the description, this live stream is basically about super strats. Now, I was and I still might do an entire dedicated video on super strats, and that's kind of a rabbit hole because I've got some super tellies as well, and other super guitars. But I wanted to get in tonight into super strats, like what are, like, the who, what, when, where, why, what are they, why, basically what are they, where do they come from. Well, actually, hold on, I got it here written down. I got my topic list right on my fancy little cell phone here. But let's just check what we're going to rap about here. Let me see. Bear with me, folks. Yeah, so as far as what the hell? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So as far as super strats, yeah, John, thanks. Yeah, down with the skills. Yeah, I'm obviously not a skilled live streamer here, so I don't even need these damn things. So why am I listening to myself with cans? That's how That's how pro we are around here. Uh, anyway, super strats. Well, what is a super strat? Why do they exist? Where do they come from? Who came up with them, and why are they popular again? Like, what's the deal with super strats? So, going back in time, well, what is a super strat? Okay, so it's a Fender Stratocaster. I might just go grab one here. Let me go grab one real quick. Be right back. That's a pro level of quality around here at Dunskill Music Labs. I'm always prepared. So, Super Strat. It's a Fender Strat, Fender Stratocaster guitar. Here's one. This is one of a few that I own. Now, what makes a Super Strat a Super Strat? Well, you take your basic Fender Stratocaster guitar, which has typically three single coil pickups, this kind of body shape, anywhere from I think 21 or 22 frets. Uh, this is a Strat. Everybody knows a Strat. I don't know if I have to explain it or break down the pedigree of what a Strat is, but a Super Strat is when you take a Strat and you modify it and you add things like humbucking pickups and like different kinds of frets or switching or there's varying different levels of super strats out there, like all kinds. I've got four examples, which probably throughout the live stream here I'll bring out depending on how people if they want to see them. But yeah, how far away can you get from the original design of a Strat of a Fender Stratocaster guitar and still call it a Strat or a Super Strat? So what are they is basically a modification of any of that original 1950-ish Fender Stratocaster design. A lot of companies are out there making Strats or Fender Super Strats like Sir Tom Anderson, LSL. Like there's a huge number of them, and they'll change the body shape. There'll be different body contours on the back, different bridges. They'll change where the output jack location is. They'll put it, somewhere else, right? Like on the bottom bout there. So, what is a super strat? I'm reminded. I'm gonna get all weird and intellectual here for you guys for a second, but there's a theme or a mythological Greek man. I can't talk. Uh, a Greek mythological story of the ship of Theseus, which was a ship that used to make this grand journey for hundreds of years. And the ship was always making this journey, and every time it made the journey, it needed maintenance. So they'd have to change parts out of the ship. And eventually, through time, they eventually changed every single board and screw and plank in the ship, but it's still the same ship, still the ship of Theseus that would make this grand journey. So strats are the same thing. Like, how many parts of this thing can you change and still call it a strat, right? So guitars like my Ibanez Pia and my Sir Modern are good examples of that. So, philosophically, it's like, you get further and further from the source material. Are you still dealing with the source material? That's kind of a question, right? With super strats. So anyway, that leads to the question of why they exist. But before we talk about that, I just want to thank the viewers here for everybody that's tuned in and watching. Just a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel and check out my original music, more of which is coming soon. Commercial break over. So, why do super strats exist? Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking here about the the existence of super strats, but why do they exist? Well, it's because people saw limitations in the original Stratocaster, and they wanted to beef it up. Like tweakers came out, like hot rodders. So one of the first things that they did was, change the pickups, right? The neck profiles evolved, a lot of other things evolved, but as far as what, users actually changed at first, the Strat being a really serviceable instrument and fixable instrument, you can change a lot of parts on it yourself. But a lot of early users, early adopters of the Super Strat, one famous guy you might have heard of, maybe Eddie Van Halen. He was one of the first few guys that dropped, humbuckers and slashed and modified up a, Strat style guitar because they wanted a different sound. Folks always kind of like, if you're a real guitar nerd, you might belong to a certain camp of, say, Gibson style players or Fender style players. Um, some folks wanted best of both worlds. Um, so the idea is that you get the humbucking sound of a Gibson into a Strat, and you get the ergonomics, and you get sort of, at least back then, lighter weight, in some ways better access to the upper frets. So in a lot of ways, super strats were built to enhance playability and tonal options. Um, so yeah, so like John's saying, super strat that weren't saying in tune, the pickups were humming. So, five-way switch, put in a humbucker or a hamburger, as John says there. Uh, yeah, bridge was another thing. Bridge wasn't staying in tune. So they, would put Floyd Roses or other, route out the back of the body here to accommodate a Floyd Rose. This was all, early 80s stuff. So look at players like Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, Steve Lukather. Hey, Dwight's here. What's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. So, yeah, why do they exist? Well, because players wanted more. They wanted different sounds. They wanted different playability. Playing styles had changed. Players were getting faster and more technical. The vintage necks weren't all that sort of suitable for bending, like extreme bends and over bends and finger tapping. So you wanted a flatter neck radius, basically, and so out of that came like a whole legion of modifications, and even you know people taking things to the extreme, like Ibanez, and like really investing hard in the RG models and the Steve Vai gem models. So out of those two models, was born the RG, which you know really took over the guitar world for a long time in terms of inventing certain neck styles and certain specs, like the wizard neck. I don't know if you guys have ever played one of those old school 80s Ibanez wizard necks, but they're really thin and really fast playing. A little too thin and a little too fast playing for me. Hard to get a good grip on those necks for the meaty type of bends that I'm looking for. But pretty cool. I knew a lot of guys that had RGs and road stars, and you really see the birth of the super strat around that early 80s time. I'm no expert in it, but you had companies like, Hamer and Hamer, Kramer, uh, Charvel, Jackson, like they're all building body. Schecter was out, another big secondary builder. Tom Anderson was around back then, building parts and things like that, and fixing necks and building necks. So it's where you got a little bit of that hot rodding attitude into guitars, because it's easy to change parts on this, or this is like the Strat as it is like a great platform, just like the Telecaster for modifications. So yeah, slap a humbucker in there. It wasn't until later innovations, like with like the floating bridges and the locking nuts, that things really got fine tuned in. And like in the past few years, we've seen things like stainless steel frets and roasted necks and all that stuff. Um, so they really came out of that need of players wanting to get different sounds, more playability. Um, and they were really popular when that was a thing in music and popular music. Um, so yeah, that kind of also answers where they came from, in terms of studio players and players, wanting kind of the best of both worlds in one guitar idea. So whole companies have been built on this. Like, sir, you look at PRS. PRS is probably they don't really make super strats, but you could kind of see them dabbling into that area here and there with a few of their models. And the Custom 24 is kind of the amalgamation of a Les Paul and a Strat, but leans more towards the Gibson realm. At least the Custom 24 does, in my opinion, just because it's got the set neck, 24 frets. Um, it's more on the Gibson-y side for me, anyway. But they do make Swamp Ash Specials. They do make the Silver Skies. Those are all Super Strat type instruments where they're copying, maybe copying instead of copying is a better way to put it, but they're copying the Strat scale length and overall contours and feel. They're just fine tweaking that recipe. So yeah, that's yeah, why do they exist? Where do they come from? It's from player needs, player wants. Styles of music have really changed. um who came up with them? I think like a lot of uh, great artistic and engineering ideas. It comes from the ground up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think these strats came from. Like, you can point to certain players, like I mentioned, but a lot of it has to do with the engineering and guys like Leo Fender that were went on to form G&L, that were continuing to modify the recipes and the specs, all in order to get more versatile instruments that could play different styles of music. Now, I happen to like a whole bunch of different styles of music, so that's why I really gravitate towards the super strats, because you can get away with so much, heavy tones and single coil tones, all in one guitar. John's got a point here that Fender did an HM Strat, and Jackson did their first guitar mods in California in the late 70s. Yeah, it goes back a while. And I mean, the the real super strat thing, I think, started late 70s. You had guys back in the day walking around like Steve Morris with his Freakazoid Tele Strat thing with Frankenstein pickups in it. Like, so the whole thing of modding guitars and tweaking them has been around a while. But as far as the species of super strat, like, I think there's a definite time frame there. Um, yeah, and Dwayne's saying he's got a couple Strats and one Telly Jackson guitars and Gibsons. They're all different sounds. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so historically they were, they've been around since the 80s, and um, they got really big and popular. You had Valley Arts and Pensa Sur back then building super strats for guitar players like Mark Knopfler and Dan Huff and Jay Graydon, studio cats like that. Really, Tim Pierce, real serious super strats, but let's not forget that, when the grunge thing came around, like the Super Strats, when the ones with the pointy headstocks, those guitars suffered massive losses during the grunge age. Like you couldn't give those bloody guitars away. They really fell out of fashion during a certain time. Vintage Strats were still kind of cool, at least in my neck of the woods or where I was coming up. But unless you were playing extreme metal, death metal, like there's no way you were getting away with playing like fluorescent green Ibanez, like in the night, in the early, to mid '90s. There, like it was just not the fashion in music. Um, yeah, John's mentioning some Gibson models. Yeah, even Gibson got back on the '80s Super Strat train. A lot of, Fender themselves did too. They made the Strat. They had when I was starting, I can't remember the name of the brand, but Fender had an offshoot brand that they made guitars with pointy headstocks and an HSH configuration, and they were really good. I can't remember the name of them. If someone can remind me in the chat or whatever, um, they had like a funny name, but they were made by Fender, not Squire or anything like that. Uh, but anyway. Yeah, the super strats have come in and out of vogue. Like sometimes they're cool and sometimes they're not. Like uh, I remember kind of being looked at funny for liking Ibanez's in the '90s because I was really into like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and like the cool kids weren't into those guitars, or those guitar players, or even that kind of music. But whatever, I didn't care. Um, I was just into high speed playing. So super strats really appealed to me. My first experience with the super strat, or like when I was first coming up, was getting the Fender Frontline catalog at the time that they used to give out at local music shops. And they had a Richie Sambora Strat, HSS Strat with a Floyd Rose. And this was a long time ago. Now, I'm not a Bon Jovi fan, but I am a Richie Sambora fan. Like, Bon Jovi's music is not for me. I don't, whatever. It's got good guitar playing in it. You can like it, you can hate it, whatever. Um, I like Richie Sambora. I'm gonna stick with that. I think he's a great guitar player and plays tasteful solos. And I saw his Strat in the Fender Frontline magazine, and it was sort of like it wasn't Olympic white, but it was this kind of yellowy, almost like the Yngwie. Uh, and I just loved it. I couldn't afford it. It was a custom shop model. It was one of the first few that had come out because the Fender Custom Shop had only been putting out like things like the Eric Clapton and the Jeff Beck and the Yngwie Malmsteen. So the Richie Sambora was early in the lineup at the time, and I just thought it was like a rad guitar. Um, and because I had the humbucker and the Floyd Rose, and I wanted to do the widdly widdlies and all that stuff. So and I didn't want like an Ibanez, like with the pointy headstock, because like it wasn't grungy enough, right? So I was an idiot. But from seeing that guitar and lusting after like super strats, you know, I kind of I kind of just bided my time until I could find one. And I'll get my first real super strat out here. Give me 1 second. So here we go. This is a Sir Classic S HS HSS configuration, and oh yeah, John Bon Jovi's. Sorry, my buddy John's in the chat. He's not related to John Bon Jovi. I guess that's just he just calls himself John Bon online. Oh, there goes my pick. Anyway, um, this is probably the first real Super Strat that I own. Sir Classic S. I got this in 2011 or 12, I think. And it is probably my number one Super Strat. It's played many shows and it's been on tons and tons of recordings. It's basically a Strat. I love the body contours on it. This part here is sculpted away. I've put a tremolo system in it so the bridge doesn't float, it just goes down, but that I can change that by adjusting the tremolo. Back in 2011 or 12, this was the first guitar that I'd ever seen with this kind of control setup. So it has what they call the blow switch. So this little button here bypasses all the electronics, the pickups and the pots, and sends a signal straight through to the bridge humbucker and the output jack. So you got a little more clarity and a little bit more oomph when you're soloing or chugging away. It also has in this middle tone pot position here, if I pull that up, that joins that activates both the neck and the bridge pickups together. So at any so in either position 1 or position 5, I'm hearing both bridge and neck position pickups. And then this last push pull here splits this into a single coil, so I get those traditional Strat tones. Goto 510 bridge, like I said, it's locked down with a tremolo and locking tuners, which is another thing that makes this, spec wise, a super Strat, and it's amazing. It's got all the Strat like characteristics, but a few more enhancements in terms of ergonomics and fancy tricks with the electronics. So yeah, I absolutely adore this guitar. It's a Sur, so it's very high quality. It doesn't say Fender, but and Sur's not obviously as popular or as big as Fender, but John Sur used to work in the Fender custom shop and knows a thing or two about building these things. So I'm gonna quickly grab my next Super Strat example. Should just take me a second here, and yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, now this is my Sir Modern, and yeah, it's Strat like shape, HSH pickup configuration. But I call this a Super Strat, but like, boy, is this a very different guitar than my Sir Modern, or sorry, my Sir Classic, or the Fender that I showed you guys earlier. But I still consider this a Super Strat. It's got a different body shape, different pickup configuration. Still has a 5-way switch. Where is it? Over here. Um, Same Goto 2 point bridge. This one I've left floating. This guitar does have a coil split right there. That splits both the neck and the bridge. Um, and it's got obviously very different body shape and contours to it. 24 frets. Um, so as this was the ship of Theseus, they added an upper deck and pool. you know, like, this is a very different guitar than a Strat, but it sounds very Strat like. I mean, it still has a bolt on neck and everything like that. Um, Plays like a dream, sounds like a dream. Um, but yeah, when I'm in pay positions 2 and 4 on the pickup selector, it's very stratty. Um, it's it's an amazing guitar, and it can sound heavy when it wants. Um, but is this a Strat to you guys? What do you think? Right? Like, I mean, it's got a Strat shaped body, sort of altered and different, and the contours are different. But to me, again, this is a super Strat as far as I'm concerned. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm gonna grab another guitar. John's got a question here. Those sirs don't have locking nuts or roller nuts. Will they stay tuned if you go Jimmy? Um, you're right, John. That's a great question. I'm gonna say no. If you go Jimmy, like maybe if it's floating, it might come back in tune. They do have locking tuners, but no locking nuts. Like this one's got locking. I can't even get it in camera there. Yeah, it's got locking tuners, but no locking nuts. Wow. So yeah, man, I don't know how much hardcore abuse they'll take as far as extreme whammy action. Um, but yeah, I'm not like a super dive bomby type guy. Well, that's a lie. And the reason it's a lie is because I'm gonna pull out something my next super strat here, and that's where we're gonna stay. I'll be right back again in 1 second, folks. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look who's coming to visit. Oh yeah, this is my buddy John's favorite guitar. Sold him one of these, but this is mine. This was the new one that I ended up buying back. And by the way, folks, thanks for tuning in. It's Dense Skill Music here. Hopefully, the football game was good, and I'm sure it's still on, and probably a lot of people are watching it. But thanks for those who are watching the live stream right now. So anyway, oh, sorry, I'm burping. Please like and subscribe. I just had some wicked pasta again. Anyway, so this here is another one of my pride and joys. This is an Ibanez Pia Steve Vai model, Panther Pink. Um, Now this guitar, spec wise and looks wise and everything, far removal from your typical Fender Stratocaster, right? Big difference between this guitar and anything Leo put out, but it still has a lot of similar characteristics to a Fender Strat. Double horn cutaway, one horn, this horn longer than that horn, and this kind of beveling over here and this sort of arm contour. Obviously, this beauty's got it's not a Floyd Rose, it's whatever Edge. Ibanez Edge system. Um, yeah. Um, oh, and there goes my pick again. If only I got paid by dropping picks. Anyway, yeah. So this is called the Ibanez Edge trim system. HSH pickup configuration with a 5-way switch. So that's similar to a strap. I mean, look at the angle. Uh, this guy has like a really wacky input jack here. That's it. Yeah, there we go. That looks kind of perverted there. Um, um, so yeah, very different spec, very different look. Just two volume tone on this guitar as opposed to the volume tone that you get on a Fender Strat. Um, it's got hole. It's got holes in it. Um, these things yeah, just amazing guitars. Obviously the binding and 24 frets and all, or sorry, not the binding, but the fretboard material is amazing. Um, 24 frets on this guy, and the last few frets are scalloped up here. Um, so yeah, oh yeah, and John's mentioned glow in the dark inlays and stuff like that on this guitar. So very high performance, very far removed from what your traditional Fender Stratocaster is, but the bones are kind of there. Ship of Theseus, folks. It's still the same ship, but it's got a big screen TV on it now, right? So John's saying in the chat to show the back panel. Yeah, this is a cool little thing on the back. So, every once in a while, if you're changing string gauges, or you need to make a small adjustment to your bridge with guitars with the floating bridge, it can be a pain in the ass because you got to take this back panel off. Well, in Ibanez Pia's big selling point is you can just pop it off, and it's a magnet, which can also be a deadly ninja star weapon if you're good at flicking things. But yeah, no, it just clicks on here, and for handy dandy adjustment. And yeah, very slick touch on this guitar. um I've done a video on this before, and basically the point of that video was to show that even though this guitar is kind of loud looking and maybe a little bit obnoxious and bold, um it really is capable of a lot of different sounds, and like you can't really judge a book by its cover. Um, Essentially, if you're looking at a guitar like this, you might think, "Oh, this thing's screaming to play some high level shreddy type stuff." Like I was getting, you can get country tones, you can play, a little bit of jazzy type stuff on the neck pickup with the tone rolled back. Like you can play a lot of different stuff with this guitar. Um, so I'm not a big believer in aesthetics really determining, what a guitar should do or sound like. Like, you know, it all depends on how the guitar is built and what the pickups are in it and what kind of player you are, you know. Like my favorite example is a guitar player that everyone should look up and check out, and his name is Jack Pearson, Pearson. Jack Pearson is ridiculous on guitar. The guy can play a broomstick with a rubber band and make it sound good. He could be falling down the stairs with a piece of fishing line and a spoon and make it sound good. He's that good. The reason I say he's that good is he's played with a lot of acts, but you'll see the guy pick up, cheap Fender Squire, or if you get into him and you look at some of his YouTube stuff, The guys play not expensive guitars, not super strats by any means, just your every sometimes he plays really nice guitars, but you can pick anything up and make it sound Jack Pearson in particular can make anything sound amazing. And I think, with super strats, like I said, they went out of fashion for a while there, but you know, they're good guitars too. Like Scott Henderson from Tribal Tech is one of my favorite guitar players. He played like an Ibanez shreddy, in Tribal Tech, which is sort of like a jazzy fusiony type thing. So, look at Frank Gambale. Like the guy is playing all kinds of different guitars, and I think now he's on to Kiesels, I believe. But he played Ibanez's for a while, like you know. So yeah, you can play just about anything on a guitar like this, or on a well set up super strat. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of these guitars. Um, John's asking, is Jack from Nashville and 65 years old? I think he's from Nashville. I don't know how old he is. But Jack Pearson, he's medium long hair and a mustache and southern accent. So he's played with the Allman Brothers, and he sings too. He does a great duet with Tommy Emmanuel, who's another fantastic guitar player. If you haven't heard of Tommy Emmanuel, check him out. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, guys, what are your thoughts on super strats? You guys ever fallen in love with one before? What's do you have a super strat that you like? Um, they're to me, they're ultimate utility guitar. Some of my favorite players, like Jerry Cantrell, rocked a super strat and Alice in Chains, back in the day, and he's one of my guitar heroes. Real, I don't know what to call it, like a primordial style of guitar playing. Like some of Jerry's solos and riffs are just, devastating. And he's using a G&L Rampage guitar, which, yeah, G&L. Yeah, you could argue, based on their lineage, that they were creating super strats and super tellies. So, yeah, super tellies exist as well. Super Les Pauls have existed for a while. It's funny when builders try and cross over into each other's territory. Sometimes, results will vary, right? Um, like some people just like the basic Fender Strat or Gibson Les Paul, and some people want, a little extra sauce, a little tweak on their specs, you know. And what's funny is that, like, you get companies copying each other. Like, I don't really know who was the first to do the whole roasted neck thing, for example, as a spec. Stainless steel frets, I think, came out in the 80s, but I remember hearing about them early on and being like, they're pingy, the frets are hard to work with. So, so, some of these specs made it into bona fide super strat um, specimens, but others didn't, right? So, like with this guitar, this is all Steve Vai spec, but Steve was playing strats with Zappa back in the day, and doing all kinds of mods and pushing the limits of guitar, for a while there. So yeah, so John's got a comment here. Jeff Beck strats, noiseless pickups with roller nuts, so you can use the whammy a lot. Yep. Yeah, 90 Strat Ultras. Yeah, they were kind of like Jeff Beck's splittable humbucker. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Jeff Becks were cool. Even heck, the Clapton model had a like that preamp thing built in it. That's similar to like, the blow switch that, it's that sort of little extra dB boost or cut that you could get out of just on your guitar instead of having to hit a pedal or something like that. So, that's kind of a super stratty spec. So, um, yeah, so yeah, we've seen, 4 levels of super strats here. Um, I love them. I think having a good super strat is is mm, like I don't want to call it desert island guitar, but it's pretty close to that. Like you know, like I know a lot of folks are like, oh, humbucker and a strat is sacrilege, right? And like I get that. Um humbucker in a tally, for example, is also considered sacrilege. But lots of players have used these things to their advantage and to their vast success. So if it's good enough for Rich Sambora, honestly, it's good enough for me. You know, is is he a player that I still listen to, or Bon Jovi a band that I love? No. But for getting those kinds of heavy rock tones and and like in a format that I can understand in terms of it being a Fender Strat with just a humbucker, like man, like that was I'd call that a pretty accessible thing, right? So yeah, I really fell in love with Super Strats. Yeah, Dwight's saying one of the Strats has lace sensor pickups in it. Another has single coils. Yeah, my brother, Guitar Hack, had a lace sensor pickups in I think it was a Strat Plus that he had, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if those were, I don't know what the deal was in terms of those being noiseless. I think they had some noise to them, but the only way I know of getting rid of the hum in a traditional single coil pickup is having some kind of extra secret coil or some kind of extra dummy coil underneath it. I think they do that in the Yngwie guitars. Um, I know Sir has their SSC system, which I think is supposed to be pretty noiseless for their single coils. I don't have it on my Sir guitars, on either of them, but I believe it's just like an extra wire, an extra magnet, that basically grounds the hum and bucks it. So, does it do anything to the tone of the guitar? I don't know. I don't have any experience with it. But I do recall the lace sensor sounding actually pretty cool. I remember they had golds, blues, and reds, and they're all kind of flavored a little bit different. But yeah, I do like the lace sensors. Um, yeah, I just don't know if they're still out there or if they're still popular. Um, it's hard to come up with new ideas for pickups and how to enhance guitars and make them super stratty. The biggest innovation I think I've heard of or seen of in a few years is the whole Fishman thing, where they're literally constructing pickups differently out of layers of circuit board, so it doesn't even use pull pieces or wire or anything like that. They're different. Yeah, John's mentioned the silver lace sensors too. There, yeah, yeah. Strat Pluses and Ultras have the lace sensors. Yeah, yeah. They have a lot of guitars with those pickups in them, and yeah. Nowadays you see different variants. The new Strat Ultras, I believe, or the I don't know if they call them, yeah, Ultra twos that just came out. They got the new noiseless pickups in them. So I have no experience with those. So I've just briefly tried the old Ultra 2 Strats, or the Ultra 1 Strats that had lace sensors, or or sorry, the noiseless pickups, I should say. And they were okay. I didn't have a problem with them, but Um, I think you gotta really take a guitar out and play it on stage and rehearsals and record with it to really get to know it. So I don't want to shoot my mouth off by saying anything untowards about the noiseless pickups. Uh, but anyway, they're always looking for new types of pickups in these Super Strat guitars, and what makes a Super Strat great? Well, I think that's a subjective thing. Um, it's got to have some of those ingredients and some of those parameters in it, like I, uh, it's hard to define the stuff because it's all subjective. But like, I don't, for example, consider a guitar with, say, a set neck, a Super Strat. It can have all the other stuff, single coil pickups and all that, but for some reason, a Super Strat to me has got to be a bolt on. It's gotta have three pickups. You know the the two pickups, say like humbucker thing, like say like in an Ernie Ball Saber, for example. I think of that guitar as less of a Super Strat than say something like this with an HSH configuration. So, your mileage may vary on what you consider a Super Strat, and who cares about definitions really at the end of the day anyway? They're all just guitars, right? Like, I'm happy with my Sirs and even my Fender. I bought that Fender and Daphne Blue there because I wanted an actual um, Fender Strat, and I used to have a Fender Strat in Fiesta Red because I'm a huge Gary Moore fan, and I got rid of that guitar, and I was like, "Ah!" So I really wanted a another Fender Strat with the HSS setup and that kind of guitar. So John's asking about the Frankenstrats, the red, black, and white with the one pickup. Um, Not my jam, per se. Cool guitars, I think. Good, but one trick ponies, limited. This is my only guitar with a Floyd Rose or a floating edge type bridge, and it's got 9 gauge strings. So I always play with tens. So this guitar is a bit of an anomaly for me. I don't like Floyd Roses or floating bridges in general. This one being an exception because it's rather stable, and over time I've gotten used to its quirks and the way to kind of make it work for me. But I really like neck pickups on guitars. I even like middle pickups. Um, and yeah, in general, the Frankenstrats, just it's like uh, John saying it's a super strat with a D tuna. Yeah, it's basically a super strat with the D tuna. That's pretty handy. You just pop out the little thing here and goes whoop, right down to D. Um, so when you're getting your Eddie Van Halen and Chain vibes on, you can rock that pretty easy without wrecking your tuning. Now these bridges are can be a pain in the butt to change tunings or to get even into tune normally sometimes. So your mileage is probably going to vary with these. For me, like I've had I think 3 or 4 different guitars with Floyd dedicate actual Floyd Roses, not including this one, and man, they were just a pain. They were a bugger. It was all fine until I either broke a string or you know I had to change string gauges, and it was just a wrestling match. And frankly, I didn't have the patience to deal with finicky Floyd Roses. So yeah, but yeah, my Super Strats, I love them, and yeah, and Johnson, Dunsko likes them all. That's true. Yeah, I do. Except banjos. Don't like banjos or banjitars or anything like that. Screw those things. Anyway, folks, we've got a few minutes left. Thanks everybody for joining in tonight's live stream. Uh, just gonna close things off here just with just some reminders to please like and subscribe to the channel. I've got my most recent video is on a NGD Tom Anderson, so check that out if you're interested in those guitars. Um, and yeah, I'll hope to be doing more live streams in the future. If the topics are good, I'll drop online. Want to thank everybody for joining up online tonight and watching. I've got some original music that's in the works, which I'll be posting up soon. So thanks for the both of you who listen to that stuff. Anyway, yeah. My next track should have Dua Lipa on it and Elton John. No, I'm kidding. No. Uh, anyway, um, yeah. So we're just coming up on the hour, and I'm out of gas, and I think my dog is clawing at the door to go out. So I'm gonna sign off, folks. Thanks again. Shout out to everybody who's tuned in tonight for the live stream. Maybe you'll check this in the future. And if you do, thanks. Please remember, like and subscribe. It helps the channel, it helps my ego. Hope you guys are having a great evening and hope you're enjoying your own Super Strats, folks. Take care and have a great night, folks.